When I started playing through the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, I had a mental ranking of how much I was going to enjoy each entry in the series, but that ranking existed only in my head. Well, now I've put that mental ranking into an actual image. Here's what I thought my enjoyment level for each game in the Pixel remaster was going to be, and by comparison, here's how much I've actually enjoyed them. With Final Fantasy III, this felt like a bigger game, and my feelings on it were more complicated by the fact that I've actually played this one before, in the form of the DS remake. So I decided to split this introspective into two videos, with the first one introducing the game and going up through the final crystal, and the second video discussing the end game and my final thoughts. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Of all the games in the Pixel Remaster collection, Final Fantasy III is the only one that I have completed before, albeit in the form of the DS remake that came out in 2006. Beyond the graphical changes, there are some pretty significant differences between that version and this one, and the sum total of those changes definitely makes it harder for me to approach this game objectively. Final Fantasy III is a weird entry, there's no two ways about it, and I spent the early hours of the game extremely frustrated with it. All the elements that would come to be shorthand for the series as a whole are present in this game, but they're present alongside a narrative that is nearly as generic as the first Final Fantasy. While the game has the four crystals, chocobos, and moogles, these elements all populate a world that is not nearly as vibrant or alive as Final Fantasy II's world, filled with characters who are largely forgettable. Even the towns lack unique and individual characteristics, with very few architectural or design elements setting them apart, the obvious exception being Saronia, the large city that is split into 4 different districts surrounding the central castle. In truth, much of the game feels very samey in terms of environments and plot beats. Gone are the varied towns and dungeons of Final Fantasy II. There's a lot of bright green fields, dark green forests, dark brown dungeons, and cookie-cutter towns. And it took me a long time to realize that my early discontent with this game was because of this, because I was expecting the wrong things from Final Fantasy III. See, take a look at this image. Cute, right? How about this one? Aww, that's adorable. And here is the heart of why I struggled with the early part of the game. My previous experience with the DS version led me to expect, at least subconsciously, a game with the same level of aesthetic appeal. Pixel art can be beautiful in its own right, but in my opinion, Final Fantasy III does not excel on this point. That is because Final Fantasy III is a game largely focused on mechanics, not narrative. Once I made that mental adjustment, the game began to shine for me. My major focus became that job system, not the world building or the story, and playing around with that job system became, in essence, the heart of the game. I will say here, as an aside, that I'm not asserting that Final Fantasy III doesn't have its own moments of beauty or wonder. Far from it, there's a lot here that's actually quite lovely. But if that's all you're here for, I recommend playing the DS version instead, as I find it to be much more appealing visually, even as dated as it is. So if mechanics are at the heart of Final Fantasy III, let's discuss mechanics. The major thing to discuss here, of course, is the job system. Final Fantasy III starts off your party of 4 characters as Onion Knights, lowly job classes that can equip any weapon but boast inferior stats. As you save each of the 4 crystals, more and more job classes become unlocked for you. A character's job levels up independently of their character level, and affects things like number of hits with their equipped weapon, magic damage, and so on. To illustrate this, here's a character with the White Mage job class at 99, and here's a character with the White Mage class at 1. Both are the same character level, but you can see the difference in their stats. Unfortunately, that's pretty much the only difference you get from higher job levels. No additional abilities or skills are added at higher job levels. What this means, then, is that while there is a focus on these mechanics in Final Fantasy III, it's not as deep as later job systems will be. It ends up feeling very bare bones overall, a feeling that echoes the empty feeling of the world building. Now, Final Fantasy III is a game that benefits greatly from the quality of life and difficulty selection improvements of the Pixel Remaster. The game has a number of difficulty spikes throughout where it simply expects you to grind several levels, in addition to frequently changing up the job classes of your party. As with other games in the Pixel Remaster collection, Final Fantasy III does not have an easy mode. Instead, the game allows you to customize the amount of experience and gil you get from battles. It also has an auto battle feature, which all told makes grinding to get past those difficulty spikes much quicker. Quicker, yes, but not better. It's still frustrating to hit a wall and have to go level up your party to get past it rather than a smooth progression of difficulty. Once I reached the Ancient's Maze, I decided to simply grind out a bunch of levels to get it over with, so that I hopefully wouldn't have to worry about it again for the rest of the game. I hope you'll join me for the next video in this series, when I finish the game, put the Cloud of Darkness in her place, and give my final thoughts on Final Fantasy III.